В этом видео мы поговорим о возвратных глаголах, reflexive verbs. Вы знаете несколько уже: учиться, заниматься. Ся – это после согласных, а с – это после гласных. Ся comes after consonants, с comes after vowels. There are several uses of reflexive verbs. We're going to be focusing on the third, but I want to mention the other two. The first is reciprocal action, so doing something with each other. I have two examples here. The first has a non-reflexive verb and the second has a reflexive, so you can see the differences. Я встречу его завтра в аэропорту. I will meet him tomorrow at the airport. Versus они встречаются каждый день. They meet with each other every day. The second use of reflexive verbs is an action done on yourself. So here we have a non-reflexive. Она моет посуду. She washes the dishes. Versus она моется. She washes herself, meaning her hands or her face. And then the one we're going to focus mostly on is passive action, where you don't have a focus on the agent. You'll see what I mean in a second. Let's look at the examples. Менеджер открывает магазин. Магазин открывается в 10 часов. In the first instance, we're focusing on who is opening the store. The manager is opening the store. Whereas in the second instance, it still might be the manager opening the store, but we're not focusing on who is doing the action. We're just focusing on the action itself. So the store opens at 10 o'clock. We're not really saying or caring about who is doing that opening. Библиотека открывается в 8 часов. А кто открывает библиотеку в 8 часов? Разве это важно? Наверное, библиотекарь открывает библиотеку в 8 часов. Right? When we talk about the library opening in the morning, we generally don't think about who it is that's unlocking the door. If we think about it, we say, well, probably it's the librarian who opens the library. But that's not what we're focusing on. So when we talk about the library opening, we'll use the reflexive verb. Poor librarian. Лекция начинает в 9 часов. А кто начинает лекцию? Профессор, конечно. The lecture starts at 9. Who is starting the lecture? Well, we assume it's the professor, of course, but that's usually not, in this instance, what we're talking about. We're talking about that the lecture starts. We're not really talking about who starts it. Осторожно, двери закрываются. Кто закрывает двери? Никто. Они сами закрываются. So in the metro, the announcement always happens, be careful, the doors are closing. Who is closing the doors? Nobody in particular is closing them. They are just closing. We're not focusing on who is closing them. So, двери закрываются. In this chapter, we're focusing on several groups of verbs that will have reflexive and non-reflexive uses. So we have the verb to open, открывать, открыть. So imperfective, perfective. And here I've given you the conjugation. This one's like читать. Открывается, открываться. Открыть, откроется, откроемся. So that's how that conjugation goes. Закрывать, same. Закрыть. So imperfective закрывать, perfective закрыть. And then of course we can add the ся depending on what we're focusing on, whether we're focusing on the agent or not. And then we have several verbs meaning beginning or ending. We have начинать, начинаться, начать, начаться. Imperfective, perfective. And I've given you the conjugations here. Кончаться, кончится. Imperfective, perfective. Кончаться is like читать. And then заканчивать and закончить. All four of these verbs meaning to finish.